your notes, we left off talking about the 5 main sources of law in the United States. This is where our laws come from. We're going to talk about the 5 ways that we get our laws in the United States. The first is federal and state statutes. The first source of our law are federal and state statutes. I'm so sorry. Federal and state constitutions. My bad. I can't even read my own slides. Well, we'll get to the federal and state statutes in a minute. Federal and state constitutions. Sorry. Second is common law. Third are statutes, both federal and state statutes. Fourth is court decisions. And fifth are administrative laws. Good? Okay. So I'm going to explain what each one of these is, one slide at a time. So let's start with federal and state constitutions. So first, a constitution is a formal document that outlines or lays out the basic principles or laws of a society, or in our case, our country. And the branch of law that deals with your constitution is called constitutional law. So whenever there's any sort of disagreement with the Constitution, it's the law relating to the Constitution is called constitutional law. Oop, go too fast, sorry. Good? So our federal and state constitutions, we'll start with the U.S. Constitution. The United States Constitution is known as the supreme law of the land. There are no laws in this country that are allowed to be in violation of our U.S. Constitution. Our U.S. Constitution is made up of 7 articles. The first 3 articles outline the branches of government and their roles. So, for instance, up there above, I write legislative branch, presidential, or executive, if you call it that, executive, and then the court systems. So those are the 3 branches. Legislative, executive, and then the courts. And the Constitution basically sets out the boundaries of your federal and state powers. We also outline what we call the rights of the people in the amendments to the Constitution. So our Constitution actually does not outline what rights we as citizens have. So what they've done is they've created amendments to the Constitution to make sure that our rights are specifically outlined, what rights we have as citizens. Those amendments to the Constitution, the first 10 of them are called the Bill of Rights. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, right to bear arms, etc. There are currently, we have a total of 27 amendments to the Constitution. The Constitution, in those 7 articles, the last one basically says that whatever rights or powers, I should say, powers, are not spelled out in the Constitution are left to the states. Okay, so whatever isn't covered in the federal Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, are left to the states. One of those rights, or powers, if you will, is the power to police. So policing authority is left to the states. It's not actually for the most part, it's not at the federal level. And really the only crime that's outlined in the U.S. Constitution is treason. Okay, that's the only crime that's actually specifically spelled out in the Constitution. And then our state constitutions, each one of our states has its own constitution as well. And that's the laws that govern our particular state, but they cannot be in conflict with the U.S. Constitution. So no laws created in a state are allowed to be in violation of the U.S. Constitution. They're not supposed to be. Are we good? Okay. Second source of laws is called common law. And common law are the set of laws that come about over time. In our case, for most of our states, these are the laws that came with us from England. So how they came about is back in England, in a particular area where people might have come from. Maybe a lord may have dealt with certain legal issues in a certain fashion. Okay, he might have decided how, if two people were disputing over property, he would make a decision about that property and how it would be handled. If somebody stole from somebody else, they would agree that this is how it would be handled. So the English colonists brought those rules with them when they came here, and that became a source of how our laws were created in our country. All the states except for Louisiana. Louisiana, if you recall from your history, was a French colony. So Louisiana brought the people that populated Louisiana brought here with them the Napoleonic Code. So under Napoleon, how the rules and laws were created and the like, that was how they were handled in Louisiana, which was a French territory initially. So basically, these types of laws, we still follow many of them today back from England, but the premise still follows. So what do I mean by that? We have a concept in our country called the law of precedent. So how something was handled in the past or prior decisions in cases become the way that a new case is handled. So if a case goes to court and the court decides in a certain fashion, okay, somebody's going to be found guilty, something is going to be decided in a certain fashion. any future cases that come to court that are similar to that, they're handled in the same fashion. It's called the law of precedent. The precedent is set. You've heard somebody say that. Somebody say, the precedent has been set. It was done this way before, so we're going to do it this way again. It's also known as the concept of stare decisis. Let the decision stand. The only way a decision is overturned is if a higher court rules that the decision in the trial court can be overturned. So a higher court, for instance, might be, the state, a state Supreme Court, or the U.S. Supreme Court, okay? And not all of these types of cases that get applied to those courts are actually heard. And we'll learn about that when we deal with the court systems next week. But so common law is our second source of law in the United States. And it's really based on judgments and customs. Statutes is the next area of law. It's called statutory law. Statutory law has to do with the laws that are created by governing bodies. So when you vote in a senator or an assemblyman or a congressman, they go and they create bills in Congress, and those bills get voted on and the like. Those are called statutes, and that's the area of statutory law. There are both federal and state statutes. State statutes cannot violate the Constitution. And statutes can be requiring you to do something or forbidding you from doing something. Can require you to pay taxes, forbid you from committing a crime. And then state statutes can't violate federal laws either. Or they're not supposed to. So you guys learned about, back in your day when you were in probably elementary school, you learned about the three branches of government, right? You learned about Congress and the Senate, and that's a legislative body. Then you learned about the president, the executive branch, and then the court systems. So these are how the three different parties play together to help form our laws. Okay, so we have, let's say Congress introduces a bill, and then the bill goes up to the president, president signs the bill. Okay, then that becomes part of the law. So the Congress created it and the president created it together. At a more local level, we have what we call ordinances. These are local laws that are passed. They're usually dealing with more minor things that have to do with your locality. So it could be dealing with, say, parking violations, or it could have to do with certain types of curfews or noise ordinances, things of that sort. Could be zoning laws. You can build a building here, you can build a house here, you can't build a house where you're building a building, and you can't build a building where you're building houses. Okay, they create, at a local level, laws of that sort. Again, those local ordinances can't be in violation of state laws, and they can't be in violation of federal laws. So, fourth area is court decisions. And the courts help to make laws in three different ways. They help to create laws through that common law tradition and the concept of precedent. They help to interpret laws when cases go to court. So like right now with the president and him creating the ban on immigration. I'm sure, as you read in my article, but you must have heard over the weekend with the judge's ruling that that was unconstitutional, and so the judge banned the ban. The judge overruled the president's his ban, and they're saying that now the immigrants can come in. So that's their interpretation of the law. And then lastly, so administrative law is the area of law that's relating to regulatory agencies. So what's a regulatory agency? Regulatory agency is an agency of the government that's created for a specific purpose. So like the Department of Environmental Conservation. The government created a branch or an agency that regulates how things relate to the environment. Clean water, air, etc. They can only make laws in that limited area, the environment, etc. Okay? Other agencies might be the IRS. They can only make laws relating to taxes. Federal Trade Commission can only make laws relating to trade and business and commerce in the United States. So their area of law is defined, and then they set out laws as it relates to their area that they are responsible for. The IRS can't make a law relating to the environment. The DEC can't make a law relating to taxes. Okay? So they have their limited area of responsibility. And they create laws as it relates to that. Typically speaking, these regulatory agencies are either created by a legislative body or they're created by the executive branch. So a governor can create an administrative agency, or the president can create an administrative agency that establishes law in a specific area of authority. And then I just give you the example of, the Federal Trade Commission, which has the power to make laws relating to business and commerce. So just a limited area of authority is what an administrative agency has authority to create and sometimes police in some fashion. Any questions on these? Good? Okay.